Hi, I am pleased to meet you in this lecture. My name is Myung-Ju Kim. I have been researched and taught IT, especially information security at Seoul Women's University. This time, we will learn the interrelationship between the digital divide and AI. And we will also examine the policy that applied a new approach to digital divide with the concept of digital inclusion. Now, let's briefly see what we are going to learn during this lecture. First, we will try to understand the digital divide and then understand how AI related to this digital divide. In this digital transformation era led by AI and ICT, countries are striving to narrow the digital divide by introducing a new policy called digital inclusion. I will show you the digital inclusion policy in Korea as a specific example. Our goal in this lecture is to understand these 6 ideas. In this lecture, as you see on the screen, we will learn these 9 topics in order. First, let's look at the definition of the digital divide from different perspectives. The European Commission defines it as a distinction between those who have internet access and are able to make use of new services offered on the World Wide Web and those who are excluded from these services. The OECD defines it as the gap between individuals, households, businesses, and geographic areas at different socioeconomic levels with regard both to their opportunity to access ICTs and to their use of the internet for a wide variety of activities. The NIA in Korea defines it as differences in opportunities to access or use information and communication services due to social, economic, regional, or physical conditions. To put together the various definitions, the digital divide can be viewed as inequality between groups, broadly construed in terms of access to, use of, or knowledge of ICTs. Jacob Nielsen says that the digital divide consists of 3 stages. These 3 stages consist of the economic divide, usability divide, and empowerment divide. Let's look first at the economic divide stage. The economic divide results from the fact that some people cannot afford to buy a computer or use the internet. In areas like North America, Europe, Australia, and Asia's advanced countries, computer cost is no longer an issue. However, in poor developing countries, the digital divide is a serious problem, even in the first economic divide stage. Wide economic divide also means low digital accessibility. The second stage of the digital divide is the usability divide stage. If people were given a computer and used in the internet free of charge, the economic divide of the first stage would be resolved. However, this will not resolve all digital divide issues. People who find the computer skills complex and difficult face a new second stage of digital divide. This is the usability divide stage. If some people cannot handle this usability divide, they will not be able to enjoy the benefits offered by computer and the internet. What is needed to narrow this usability divide is not economic cost, but the determination of the persons who feel the difficulty and the help from persons around them. This usability divide can be addressed when people acquire digital skills, digital usage, and digital literacy. The final and third stage of digital divide is empowerment divide stage. Even if computers and the internet were extraordinarily easy to use, not everybody would actively make full use of such technologies and services. For example, social media is a great technology for donation, but most people still do not use social media when they make a donation. People can solve problems given to them by using digital technology, but many people just allow their lives to be decided by others. For example, people sometimes use the default home page rather than select better one that is properly suited to their needs. In addition, people can use more effective applications if they search for them for a while, but they just waste the time looking at boring advertisement. As such, empowerment divide emerges when people remain complacent instead of more actively using readily available computer or internet technologies to solve problems. At this empowerment divide stage, there are huge differences among individuals, and it has a close relationship with individuals' digital competence. Now, let's move on to metrics that indicate the digital divide. I will introduce 3 metrics that the NIA uses to measure Korea's entire digital divide. The first metric is the Digital Information Access Index. This shows how easily people can access a computer or the internet. It also indicates whether people have a wired or wireless smart device and whether people always have internet access. The second metric is the Digital Information Competence Index. This metric shows computer literacy and mobile device literacy. The third and final metric is the Digital Information Utilization Index. This metric indicates the use of wired internet, diversity of internet service use, and intensity of internet use. In particular, intensity of internet use is measured with a focus on information production and sharing, social participation, and economic activity. These graphs show you the result of measurement of digital divide in Korea over the past 3 years. It was measured on maximum points of 100, with 20 points for the Digital Information Access Index, 40 points for Digital Information Competence Index, and 40 points for the Digital Information Utilization Index. If we look at these graphs, you can see that the 3 metrics and the measured overall digital divide are steadily increasing. This figure shows how human society has transformed itself through innovative technology since the Industrial Revolution. For example, digital transformation based on computers and the internet initiated the transformation to an information society, which is currently on the way. And human society has been preparing for additional transformation due to intelligentization based on new AI technologies. However, as the COVID-19 pandemic has recently spread around the world, and activities without direct contacts with others have been recommended for a while, the influence of advanced ICT has dramatically increased. The pandemic has also accelerated social transformation by several years, and the digital divide has grown even wider. After all, the pandemic and cutting-edge new AI technology have further widened the digital divide. Now let's learn about the correlation between the digital divide and AI. According to a 2020 survey of more than 3,000 business managers, executives, and analysts in 112 countries, more than 80% of respondents expected AI to give their organization competitive advantages and boost productivities. As a result, companies and countries that adopt AI later than others are more likely to become less competitive and be imposed to the risk of losing their market share. AI divide at the country level will become wider as countries leading the AI race take advantage of AI technology when they pursue economic benefits and expand the social welfare. Broadly speaking, the advent of AI will newly create AI divide between countries as well as business and individuals. And the wider the AI divide, the severer the digital divide. While entrepreneurs place a great weight on the potential of AI and advocate for active adoption of AI, some people in society reject to adopt AI due to the distrust of the AI technology. As we learned in the previous lectures on AI ethics and AI regulations, many experts raise concerns about AI technology despite its great benefits. Such negative perception of AI could further widen the digital divide. In the USA, an excellent AI curriculum is already in place. That is the AI for K-12 initiative, prepared by the Association for the Advancement of AI and the Computer Science Teachers Association. However, some schools that adhere to conventional curricula are hardly likely to operate this curriculum. The situation in Korea is similar to that of the USA. To narrow the digital divide caused by AI, the Korean government has already developed 5 AI textbooks by level for elementary, middle, and higher school students. However, due to some schools' indifference and the social backlash against the emphasis on the importance of AI education progresses more slowly than expected. AI-based personalized learning tools, that is, EdTech tools, are becoming increasingly important. However, many parents who value conventional face-to-face education oppose this EdTech-based education. As such, various forms of rejection of using AI will ultimately expand digital divide. Therefore, it is expected that the digital divide caused by AI will decrease if we heighten trust in AI and alleviate reluctance through AI ethics and AI regulations. Rajagopal argued that AI should be actively used to bridge digital divide by citing some examples for this. Children in rural areas feel comfortable to learn in mother tongue. If we develop AI that can recognize their local language voices using a phone, we can help 3 billion children who are on the other side of the digital divide. Children often need to be motivated by excellent teachers. Effective computing perceives human motivation levels and synthesizes motivating words based on AI. If we train AI as an ultimately excellent teacher, it will have a positive influence on many students. As such, if we use AI actively, it is expected that the current digital divide issue can be resolved innovatively. Recently, a new policy-based approach called digital inclusion has been introduced as a bridge to solve the digital divide. ICTs, including new AI technology, ignites digital transformation around the world. In this era of digital transformation, the digital divide gets wide, and the economic and the social inequality and discrimination are more likely to worsen. Therefore, many countries, including Korea, are striving to bridge the existing digital divide by introducing a new digital inclusion policy. UNESCO has been preparing the recommendation on the ethics of AI since 2020 until now. It can be seen as the latest version of AI ethics based on the participation of the largest number of 195 countries. The recommendation consists of 11 policy areas and 141 paragraphs. If you look at paragraph 41 and 67, digital divide and inclusiveness are used in almost the same sense. In particular, policy area 8 addresses education and research. If you look at paragraph 101 and 105 belongs to this policy area, you can see that narrowing the digital divide and expanding the digital inclusion are used in the same sense. Now let's take a look at how digital inclusion is defined and used by countries. In case of Korea, digital inclusion is defined as efforts of society as a whole to ensure that all citizens participate in the digital world and equally enjoy the benefit of digital technology without discrimination. In case of the European Union, digital inclusion is an EU-wide effort to make everyone can contribute and benefit from the digital world. In case of the United Kingdom, digital inclusion is about having access, skills, and motivation to confidently go online to access the internet opportunities. In case of Australia, digital inclusion refers to social inclusion by using technology as a channel to improve quality of life, foster education, and promote economic well-being across all elements of society. Considering all of these definitions, digital inclusion means that all people living in the digital age enjoy the benefits of digital technology and services without being alienated or excluded in the digital use environment and build digital capabilities without discrimination. Therefore, digital inclusion can be viewed as a broader concept that includes solutions to the existing digital divide. Let's take a closer look at the concept of digital inclusion. Digital inclusion refers to the activities necessary to ensure that all individuals and communities, including the most disadvantaged, have access to and use ICTs. It significantly includes 5 elements. First, affordable, robust broadband internet service. Second, internet-enabled devices that meet the needs of the user. Third, access to digital literacy training. Fourth, quality technical support. And fifth, applications and online content designed to enable and encourage self-sufficiency, participation, and collaboration. As technology advances around these 5 elements, digital inclusion must evolve as well. In addition, intentional strategies and investment should come first to ensure successful digital inclusion. Now, I will introduce Korea's case as national planning to implement the policy of digital inclusion. Korea has presented its vision for digital inclusion, a digitally inclusive nation for all. To implement this vision, Korea is pushing forward 4 tasks, each for the areas of capacity, environment, utilization, and foundation. Through the first capacity task, Korea helps all citizens build comprehensive digital capabilities. In the second environmental task, Korea helps vulnerable groups easily utilize digital technologies and services. In the third utilization task, Korea promotes wide use of inclusive digital technologies and supports social engagement and the employment of vulnerable groups. Through the first and the final foundation task, Korea established a problem-solving system based on public-private partnership and the citizen-led community. Then let's take a closer look at these 4 tasks. The first capacity task aims to help all citizens build comprehensive digital capabilities. This task consists of 3 projects. In the first project, we will build a framework for digital education that all can easily access. To this end, we will operate digital competence centers and provide level-specific customized training. In the second project, we will help all citizens build capacities in the area of software and AI. For this, we will provide online and offline lifelong AI education curriculum for adults. In the third project, we will make a clean cyber world through education that aims to prevent adverse impact of digitalization. The second environmental task is about helping vulnerable groups easily utilize digital technologies and services. This task consists of 3 projects. In the first project, we will ensure people in rural area, the elderly, and the disabled have easier access to broadcasting and communication services. In the second project, we will facilitate the digital access of the vulnerable and their use of government services. In particular, we will improve systems to ensure the disabled and the elderly can access kiosks and provide more support for the vulnerable for the use of government services. In the third project, we will support remote learning for students from low-income families and the remote work of small and medium enterprise workers. Let's move on to third utilization task that promotes wide use of inclusive digital technologies and support the social engagement and employment of vulnerable groups. This task consists of 2 projects. In the first project, we will facilitate the access of vulnerables to inclusive digital technologies and services. Specifically, we will develop and adopt AI-based services to minimize inconvenience the vulnerables may suffer. We will also provide public and welfare services customized to the vulnerables by using AI speakers. In the second project, we will support social enterprises and build a foundation for creating inclusive jobs. These pictures show some outcomes from executing the third task. This is an example of using the social humanoid robot, Riku, as an AI-based solution to the digital divide. Riku is an AI robot used for the education of the elderly and children. Especially for the elderly, Riku explains how to use messaging service, video calls, and other communication tools. With this AI solution to digital divide, Seoul City won the NetExplore Linking Cities Award from UNESCO in April 2021. Now let me introduce the first task that aims to build a problem-solving scheme based on public-private cooperation and citizen-led community. This task includes 3 projects. In the first project, we will build a framework for public-private cooperation and support businesses engaging in digital inclusive activities. In particular, we will organize and operate the Digital Inclusion Alliance together, which is tentative name, with civil society, businesses, and organizations. In the second project, we will build a foundation for citizen-led social problem-solving scheme. To this end, we will establish more digital social innovation support centers in major cities. In the third project, we will establish a legal framework for the digital inclusive society. The National Assembly is working to enact the Digital Comprehensive Act, which is also a tentative name. So far, we have looked into Korea's case for digital inclusion policy. Digital inclusion is a policy of a new approach that includes a solution to digital divide. In this lecture, we have learned about digital divide. Digital divide refers to distinction, gap, difference, and inequality in opportunities to access to or use information and communication services. Digital divide consists of 3 steps, which are the economic divide, the usability divide, and the empowerment divide stages. The NIA in Korea uses 3 metrics to measure the digital divide. AI has a huge impact on digital divide. Negative beliefs about AI can deepen the digital divide. So ethical and legal efforts to develop trustworthy AI become important. On the other hand, if we use AI effectively in education, it is more likely to bridge the digital divide to a large extent. A new policy called digital inclusion is a more comprehensive policy that can narrow the existing digital divide. In order to implement a digital inclusion policy, Korea has been conducting specific tasks in 4 major areas. We have looked at examples of them. This is all I prepared on digital divide and AI. If you want to know the content mentioned in this lecture in more detail, please find the materials or website listed in the following references. Thank you for sharing your time with me.